Good evening. Welcome to the Gothic Bohemian Salon. This is Jwlhyfer, and tonight I wanted to talk to you a little bit about generalized anxiety disorder and social anxiety disorder. Now, I've been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder for over 20 years now, something like that maybe. I was not diagnosed with social anxiety disorder, but I believe that I have both. Just that my social anxiety disorder doesn't present itself as obviously as the generalized anxiety does. I think one of the reasons why I got into the Goth scene was because of having generalized anxiety disorder, because it was a controlled environment and you knew what to expect from the people that were in it. You were all outcasts at the same time, and you sort of felt like you were on the same level. Even though I still had or have social anxiety in those situations too, somehow it's not quite as bad as dealing with let's call them what normal people, I guess, or your average. I don't really remember a time when I didn't feel socially awkward. I was one of those kids that sat in the back of the class and drew and didn't really talk to anybody. And I guess I was pretty quiet when I was young, except for some pretty intense difficulties dealing with my parents, but that's another story entirely. The way I was brought up was sort of, I won't say sheltered, because it wasn't a shelter. It was a prison, so I didn't really get a sense of where anything was in the place where I lived. Like, you know how if you live on a street, there's a grocery market at the end of the street, and if you go down this block there's a library, and if you go down this other block there's a school, and if you turn around behind you there's going to be a park or something like that. Well, I don't have that kind of orientation. I'm almost always completely disoriented. I don't know where anything is. And I think it stems from this way that I was brought up, which is just, we drove to like 5 different places and that was it. And we always took the same route and never really varied it. And I wasn't allowed to go out on my own at all. So I didn't really have a chance to explore where I lived or know where anything was. I wasn't allowed to learn how to drive. Well, I did learn how to drive because it's part of school and it's part of the curriculum. You can't not take it. So I did do the driver's ed, but I never learned how to drive, and I still don't know how to drive, actually. I still have to really concentrate to try to get anywhere, and it's very anxiety producing to have to go someplace new or talk to anybody new or deal with anything new. Even dealing with stuff that's old and happens every month, or something like a doctor's appointment that's regular, is difficult. So the Gothic community helped me a lot to have a social life without having to deal with too many people at a time, I guess, in a way. And I also was able to express myself creatively in such a way that people kind of put me up on a pedestal, so I was distanced from them in a way that sort of wasn't great, but it just gave me another layer of protection, if that makes any sense. And then I started getting into costuming, and I was promoting a group that I started with a friend of mine called the Greater Bay Area Costumers Guild. And the great thing about socializing in that situation was that I could just be a representative of the Costumers Guild. I didn't have to be me. Once again, I was, like kind of some sort of icon or figure. I wasn't really myself, so I could, relate to people on that level, and I didn't have to, be too personal with them. But at the root of the whole social anxiety thing is the feeling that people are judging you or thinking bad things about you or talking about you, or that they think you're, horrible, and that they can see the truth about you or something like that, which has to do also with, obviously, low self-esteem. I guess what most people don't know about me is that I'm constantly thinking that they must dislike me, and or that if they really knew me, they wouldn't like me at all if they say that they do, and, that I just feel kind of worthless a lot of the time. I guess it's good to know that this mascara is actually really waterproof. Speaking of which, just in case you need to know, I'm wearing L'Oreal Double Extend. It's actually one of my favorite mascaras, and I'd actually forgotten about it, so I'm glad I remembered, because it's evidently waterproof. So I think that most of the people that know me would be surprised to know that I have low self-esteem, or that I feel so anxiety-ridden in social situations, or just in general. I tend to avoid things that that worry me or make me nervous. This causes a lot of trouble, because I'll avoid bills, and I'll avoid people that I'm supposed to do things for, things I have to get done, and it's it's kind of arbitrary too. It's some things aren't bad at all, and some things that you would think are less difficult are much more difficult to do or deal with. So it's really, and you'd think that you wouldn't want to be noticed. You'd want to be all mousy and have brown hair and sit in the corner and hope nobody would notice you this way, because then you'd have less to deal with people talking to you or whatever. What I found was that having colored hair and having tattoos and wearing these rings and everything kind of gives me an armor. Wearing the kind of makeup that I do sometimes, and dressing up is a kind of an armor, and makes me feel stronger. It also makes me feel like I look like a creature more than a person in some ways, or that I'm putting on a costume that I'm wearing, and therefore they won't see me because I'm in the costume acting, if that makes any sense at all. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't have the sensibilities of a goth, and that I don't love the way I look, and that my tattoos have no meaning except for that, or something like that. It really doesn't at all. All that stuff does have meaning to me, and it is also who I really am, and everything. It's just that it also is a way for me to be a part of something while still being removed, in a way, if that makes any sense. And that feels more comfortable to me than any other way, I suppose. I've never felt like I belonged anywhere. Even the Gothic subculture, I don't feel I belong. I belong in, to be frank. I love it. It's a large part of my life, but I feel, I don't know, I feel like like there's been a few people who have kind of made some comments about how silly I was for dressing the way I do, and this is a long time ago, you have to remember. I mean, I'm thinking of people who are, like, in some cases, gone. I mean, dead and buried. It still bothers me, but I feel that so intrinsically. There was a guy once who said to me, you know, even with all that stuff on your face and, you know, dressed like that, you're always going to be normal. You're always just going to look normal. This guy said this to me. This is in Venice Beach, like 30 plus years ago. And I had a best friend who was the friend who, or I thought she was a good friend, who was the person who gave me all the mixtapes when I was a kid, a teenager. And she had, as soon as I started dressing up, she got really weird about me. And she got really irritated at me. And I don't know why that was. I wasn't looking like her at all, I don't think. She didn't dress like I was dressing or anything. Anyway, I'm on, you know, medication for generalized anxiety disorder, and it does help, but it's still hard to deal with people, to leave the house and to try to go someplace that I've never been, or just go outside where there's crowds of people. I feel like I'm being buffeted by all their emotions and energies and everything when I go outside, so sometimes it just feels safer in here. And I'm not a big old recluse either. I mean, I'm a social person. I get out as much as possible, but I still have these difficulties, so what can I say? I just wanted to, I don't know, share a little bit of that with you, and just let you know that if you suffer from that kind of thing, you're not alone, and it's mostly a lot more under control than it used to be. The thoughts aren't as bad or as much as they used to be. So if you have problems like this, do try to seek out some help. There's probably a clinic or a doctor that can help you, and keep looking until you find somebody who can. It's worth it. In the meantime, you know, just take care of yourself, and you're not as awful as you think that you are. And probably nobody's talking about you, because people are so wrapped up in their own stuff, they're almost never talking about you. Believe it or not. Actually, one of the most important things that somebody said to me once was, sorry, she said, it's not all about you. That's what she said. Yeah, it's not all about you. And you know what? It usually isn't. Whatever it is, it's usually not all about you, or not at all about you. So thank you for joining me in the Gothic Bohemian Salon.